that regard. But that said, when he asked why he was being detained, the agent reportedly told Hasan that it was routine. Hasan then claiming that rather than questions about Trump, there were a lot about his views in connection to Israel.
They're asking me about Trump. They're asking me about like Hamas, and he kept saying stuff. He kept saying stuff like, "Do you like Hamas? Like, do you support Hamas? Do you think Hamas is a resistance group?" I kept saying a couple different things. One, in terms of like Israel and all the wars, I was like, I'm on the side of civilians. I want the endless bloodshed to end. I am a pacifist. I want wars to end. I just kept repeating that over and over again. Every single time he asked me a question, I just kept repeating that. And every single time he asked me a question, a leading question about Hamas, I kept saying, the United States State Department recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization. The United States State Department recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization.
And from there, he had Hasan saying the questions went from being about his views to asking if he had any contact or involvement with Hamas as well as the Houthis or Hezbollah.
Straight up. That's literally what this conversation was about. And it's not even a joke. Like, they straight up tried to get something out of me that I think they could use to basically detain me permanently, which is insane, because there is no direct connection or direct involvement.
But ultimately, with all that, while Hasan speculated they were looking for a reason to hold him, he said, what it was really all about was intimidation.
I think they did it because they know who the I am, and they wanted to put the fear of God into me. Obviously, the reason for why they're doing that is, I think, to try to create an environment of fear, to try to get people like myself, or at least like others that would be in my shoes that don't have that same level of security, to shut the up. And for me, I'm going to use the privilege that I have in that moment to try and see what they're doing, okay? Because every single thing that they ask me, trying to get me to say something like, oh, I support Hamas or whatever, is literally not allowed. Like, they are not, what do you mean? Like, why is this denying me entry into the country of my birth? Like, this is my birthright. I'm an American citizen. You can't just stop me at the border and be like, what's your opinion on Donald Trump? You're not allowed to enter the nation. The goal here is to put fear into people's hearts, to have a chilling effect on speech, that like the government is unafraid of intimidating you in illegal ways. Okay. The government is now officially willing and able to intimidate you for speech, for your speech. That is a direct violation of the First Amendment.
Now, with all of that said, on the other side, you had officials denying that Hasan was targeted over his beliefs during what they called a routine and lawful inspection, with notably DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin accusing the streamer of, quote, lying for likes, and going on to say, claims that his political beliefs triggered the inspection are baseless. Our CBP officers are following the law, not agendas. And adding, upon entering the country, this individual was referred for further inspection, a routine lawful process that occurs daily and can apply for any traveler. Once his inspection was complete, he was promptly released. Though then, you had Hasan responding to the Trump administration's defense in a statement to NBC saying, what part of a lawful routine inspection requires DHS to question me about my political views, my opinions on Donald Trump, and my stance on Israel and Palestine? Which, are thoughts and questions we've seen echoed by others. I mean, you have people like Alex Peter, for example, known as Lolo, who's an attorney who's popular online, and he wrote, DHS flagging and detaining one of the US's largest left-wing voices for their political opinions, while the Trump admin suggests they might suspend habeas corpus, does not portend well for the future. But then also, Hasan's uncle, the co-founder of the Young Turks, where Hasan briefly worked, also chiming in, saying border agents detaining and interrogating Hasan proves two things. They are targeting U.S. citizens as well. And adding, they asked him about his policy positions on Israel and Trump. This is a frontal attack on freedom of speech. This is when you show if you have principles or not. But ultimately, with all this, again, just to reiterate, I don't care if you love or you hate Hasan Piker, especially because it seems like this is not an outlier in a bubble situation. We started seeing claims and stories pop up from people that were from outside the country visiting the U.S., getting detained, questioned, deported. Right? We've talked about a number of those troubling situations, but also like with what happened with Hasan, it happened as we're seeing an increase in reports from people about US citizens being detained at the border and at airports. And we're also seeing it as just socially, we're seeing an escalation with situations popping up like big MAGA Republican accounts calling on Pam Bondi to arrest Aaron Parnas reporting news. There appears to be an escalation happening, and if you don't care about it because there's no like perfect victim for you, there's not gonna be. And unfortunately, as history has shown us time and time again, when this is allowed to happen uncontested, eventually you and or the people that you love and you care about may find yourselves in the crosshairs. It's just a question of where it lands on the range of harassing to chill free speech to the incredibly scary, darker shit. But for now, that is the news, and then separately, my opinion. And in the meantime, as we wait to see how everything plays out, I'd love to know your thoughts in those comments down below. And then I've got more news for you in just 60 seconds. But first, when was the last time you stepped in a puddle and you felt your soul leave your body? Because we've all been there, getting angry at ourselves or the puddle. But now, I just laugh victoriously because I just wear my Vessies everywhere. And I've worn them chasing my dogs through mud, walking through surprise rain, even through one of those mystery sidewalk puddles on a sunny day. And I'm dry every time. Because these shoes, they are 100% legit waterproof. Not kinda splash proof waterproof, actually stay dry through a storm waterproof. And unlike most waterproof shoes, these don't look like you're hiking the Appalachian Trail. They are sleek, they are minimal, they actually look good with jeans, joggers, or whatever chaos I'm dressed in. Personally, I rock the Weekenders, and they've quietly replaced like 3 pairs of shoes in my closet. But main thing, errands covered, long airport days handled, standing for doors at an outdoor shoot or game, still comfy. Plus, they're feather light and breathable, so my feet aren't sweaty bricks by noon. One of the reasons I love having Vessi as a sponsor for the PDS is because I'd recommend them even if they didn't. So y'all say yes to spontaneous plans, walks in weird weather, and not checking the forecast. Just scan that QR code or go to vessi.com/DeFranco to get 15% off your first pair, automatically applied at checkout. It's VESSI.com/DeFranco, and go check them out and step into some weatherproof confidence. But then, Donald Trump loves his tax bills like my dad likes his women. Big and beautiful, and do not open that man's laptop without asking first. And while my dad may not want me to expand on that joke, what we can unpack are the Republicans unveiling the text of Trump's big, beautiful tax bill. Because, yesterday we talked about how Republicans released their plan to pay for Trump's legislative agenda by seemingly making cuts to Medicaid that will force millions of poor Americans to lose their health insurance and pay higher healthcare costs. But it's just one element of a much broader package, which, again, just so you understand, is literally named the One Big Beautiful Bill. All caps, and all of which has been published in full. Now, notably here, the proposal that House Republicans made public yesterday, it is nearly 400 pages long. So obviously, I'm not going to be touching on everything. But I do need to hit on some of the key elements that Republicans are proposing here. So first off, as expected, a huge part of this legislation is the more than $4 trillion in tax cuts, and specifically the extension of the 2017 tax cuts made under the first Trump administration. While Americans from nearly all income levels will see the impacts, it's the wealthiest people and corporations that are going to reap the biggest benefits. But according to the Center for American Progress, aka CAP, the bill would, quote, give millionaires a $68,000 tax cut and give households in the top 0.1% a $300,000 tax cut, while raising taxes or doing nothing for 33 million working class households. But then there are also several new policies aimed at helping more working class families. For things like giving newborn babies a $1,000 tax-free savings account called Money Account for Growth and Advancement, which if you didn't put that together, that is the MAGA account. With that, able to hold up to $5,000 in contributions until the beneficiary is 31 years old. And then another provision that would help middle class families is a $2,000 increase to the standard deduction, which is the baseline amount of income that filers can collect tax-free. So, that bumps the total number to $32,000 per household. And the bill would also boost the child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,500 for 4 years, but only for some families. But then also, notably, according to Brookings, because of how the credit is designed based on family income, the lowest income children, they're left out entirely or given partial credits, while wealthier families are given full credits. And then notably, in addition to that, the Republican bill would add a new requirement that limits eligibility to only parents and guardians with social security numbers. So essentially requiring people to be citizens in order to receive the benefit, which is a move that one think tank estimated would impact 4.5 million children who they themselves are citizens or legal residents. And then beyond that, the legislation would also include some significant new tax breaks, though very notably here, all of these are temporary, lasting only for the next 4 years. With those, for example, including a pause for taxes on tipped wages and overtime pay, with exceptions for highly compensated employees. And like the child tax credit, people would be required to have a social security number to qualify, functionally making non-citizens ineligible. Also, other new temporary tax breaks include a bonus deduction of $4,000 on Social Security wages for seniors with adjusted incomes no higher than $75,000 per individual. Also, one of the more contentious new temporary tax breaks would allocate up to $5 billion per year in tax credits for people who donate to school voucher programs that help families pay for private school tuition or homeschooling, with a bill specifically creating a 100% tax credit for donations to scholarship granting organizations, meaning that taxpayers will be fully reimbursed for their contributions, totally dwarfing the incentive for any other charity. And so you have many arguing that this will essentially funnel billions of taxpayer dollars to private schools, including to pay for the tuition of already wealthy families. And with that, you had the Washington Post reporting that households earning up to 3 times their area median income would qualify for the vouchers. So in DC, for example, that means that families that make more than $450,000 would still be eligible. And then the final tax cut I want to hit on is the state and local tax deduction, also known as SALT, which allows taxpayers to write off the amount that they paid in local taxes when they file their federal tax bill. And there, under Trump's 2017 tax break, SALT deduction was capped at